The video gaming industry is crashing, and specifically that politically progressive side of the gaming industry that we usually deem to call woke. And those include the games that we usually talk about, like Forspoken, that have decimated entire studios or shut down those studios. And that's the same thing happening with a Sweetbaby Inc. game that came out this past summer in 2024 with a resounding lack of awareness from the game player base because no one cared about this release. And with the game's design and overall mechanics, it didn't become popular through word of mouth either. And that's the situation with most Sweetbaby Inc. games nowadays. They don't attract gamers at all, whether through gameplay mechanics or word of mouth, because the gamers just simply do not play their games because they're not attractive to game players in general, because they're making horribly designed characters and of course a story centered on modern day political progressive ideologies that center around racial and gender politics. And that is a combination of things that automatically make your game dead on arrival in the modern gaming industry today. Of course, a lot of developers are not hip to this fact, but they become hip to this fact because their studio closes down and they have a round of mass layoffs. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the Sweetbaby Inc. infected Reflector Entertainment. Now they're admitting that Unknown 9 is a failure and they're planning for layoffs and future cancellations of multiple projects that they had planned. And of course, if you know anything about the gaming industry, it just takes one failure to put your studio in a precarious situation. That's how dicey it is to start a video game within this industry. And add on top of that, you're antagonizing the gamers by making something that is the antithesis of the things that they actually want to see in a video game. That is going to be a recipe for disaster. Granted, Reflector Entertainment didn't have the standard operating procedure for a lot of these developers that are trying to virtue signal to these political progressive attitudes. No, they didn't insult the gamers, harass the gamers, they didn't call the gamers racist, which I think is a positive thing. But overall, they didn't make a game for gamers, and that is the fatal flaw to their strategy. You have to make a game that is attractive to the gamer base, and you have to ignore your politics that may obstruct that. And that's what we saw with Reflector Entertainment, especially this game Unknown 9. If you play a little bit of it, you realize how annoying the main character is, how forceful all the diversity elements are in there, and just the terrible story and character design. And I think these are the combinations that made this game an impossibility for a lot of people to play. It became predictable story-wise because, you know, every white male character is going to be the devil in this game. And that is just their politics showing so boldly that it's just boring to actually play that type of game. And I think that's why 2024 became sort of the year of the flop, because so much games follow this basic story structure where you know what's going to happen based on the politics of the people developing that game. You know what character is going to be good. You know what character is going to be evil, because in their minds, every female character has to be good no matter how evil they are. They're just flawed because of some male character that pushed them in that direction. And every male character is essentially evil or obsessively weak and effeminate. And I think that's what you see with a lot of titles that came out these past few years that are dedicated to this ideology that is at the forefront of Sweetbaby Inc. and a lot of these consultancy firms that are influencing the video gaming industry. It's about putting out product that reflects their ideals of what society should be rather than what makes the gamers have entertainment. And I think that is the massive flaw that we see with a lot of studios today. They're more focused on their personal ideology than what the gamers actually want from the games that they're purchasing, the games that they're spending their well-earned cash on. And that's what you're seeing with games like Dustborn that are based on the 2016 election. No one wants to hear that. And I think that is a situation we see with a lot of properties. And when you look back at the old properties, you kind of look at them nostalgically because they were focused on making things that gamers actually wanted to play. And I think that is a sorry state of affairs in the gaming industry today. And that's why you're seeing Reflector Entertainment talk about their issues where they're going to have to cancel projects, make some layoffs, and eventually probably wind down the studio. And I think that's the situation we're seeing with a whole host of titles that fail. If you only have 24 people playing your games like Unknown 9 and the reviews are so abysmal because the game is actually bad as well, that is just a situation that is going to doom a studio. And I think eventually we're going to see that failure spread out to other parts of Sony. You just have to look at Horizon Zero Dawn. That has become a massive failure on its own right because it cannot attract the fan base that is supposedly waiting for more content from Horizon Zero Dawn. And I think that's the situation that is occurring at Sony as they cancel multiple MMO projects, including one focus on the Horizon Zero Dawn universe. And I think it goes back to the things that we've been seeing with a lot of properties that have come out recently from Sony, where they're canceling a bunch of live service properties because simply what they're making is probably very similar to what we saw with Concord. And Concord was the biggest failure that they've had yet in the history of Sony, spending over $500 million on something that no one played, only 600 people played, and you are seeing this as a future of your entire console system, and you're making multiple projects in a similar way, you're going to be in trouble. And I think that's why we're seeing a massive amount of cancellations of these MMO live service projects, because Sony was probably making multiple games similar to Concord because they were so focused on this progressive ideology that seemed to be taking over the gaming industry at that time. And it's funny to see this happening to Horizon Zero Dawn. It's always touted as some big successful project. Even though it sold 20 million copies, more than 60% of those copies were sold for free with PlayStation consoles. And I think that is a situation people keep missing out on about Horizon Zero Dawn. It was a free game for PlayStation. So selling that many units is not that great if it's tied to the console itself. And I think that's the thing that's obfuscating the truth for a lot of these companies, where they have these fake numbers that are supporting this ideology that is tearing down the video gaming industry and making these developers cancel projects and almost go bankrupt. And I think that is the result that we're seeing playing out right now in the industry, where 2024 is the year of the flop, where so much titles came out that couldn't stand to the criticism of the fans that love those series, and resulting, we see a complete collapse of those franchises. And that was a year for that to occur. And it seems like it's going into 2025 as multiple projects continue on that route of failure. And for me, it goes back to the principles established by Sweetbaby Inc., focusing on these political antics and, more than anything, focusing on terrible character designs. This is one of the main characters for Awakening, where we have this supermodel actor that kind of reduced into a strong jaw Indian girl. I think that is the thing that we see with a lot of projects that are focused on these diversity issues, these woke ideology issues. They have a strong urge to uglify the characters and make them highly unappealing to the game player base. And the result that we're seeing is that game players won't even give these games a chance. We're just churning away just by the look of it, because marketability matters. Making something that looks interesting and appealing and attractive actually gets the game player interested in your project. Of course, it's not going to hold their interest, but more than anything, it's going to get them to actually play your game. If your game is good, then you're going to get the sales for that game and the word of mouth spreading. And I think that is a lost art in the gaming industry nowadays, making something that gamers actually like to look at and enjoy playing. And that should be the core focus of a lot of the industry right now. And of course, we have games coming out like that are doing their best to placate the gaming community, but most of those are coming from Korea, China, Japan, and unsuspectingly Russia. These gaming studios at these East Asian development areas are making games for the gamers, and they're making a lot of money doing it. I think that is a result of game studios actually trying to placate to an audience that wants to be engaged with the titles that are coming out. And I think that's what we're seeing with the future of gaming right now, where East Asia is taking the mantle and Western game developers are closing up shop, much in line with Sony in the Horizon Zero Dawn series, and of course Sweetbaby Inc. and the Unknown 9 failure that came out last year. But this is my opinion. The woke gaming crash is here. I think a lot of studios are suffering, and I think in the future we're going to see more studios go down the wayside, much in line with Reflector Studios. But you tell me what you think about the situation. I'd like to hear your comments. Gaming is crashing, but maybe you don't believe that's true. You leave a comment, tell me what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.